talking about today is based on a report that we just published called Lived Experience Intelligence, and you can actually download a copy of that report for free over the next couple of weeks. All you need to do is go to livedexperienceintelligence.com. It's important to know that the entire conversation about lived experience intelligence, it originated in my mind a couple of years ago because I'm a really nosy person, and people who know me absolutely know this. I ask a lot of questions, but two of my favorite questions that I often ask are why and how. And in my consulting business, I used to spend a lot of time making sure that leaders understood why increasing diversity was important. But there are already so many statistics around the benefits of increasing diversity that it was no longer a question of if there's a benefit. The data was overwhelming that diverse organizations outperform homogeneous workplaces. So then my next question, which I felt like no one was answering, was this one. How does increasing diversity make one organization more competitive, better? Can't simply be because of my identity. Some action actually has to happen once I enter your organization. So my question of how was really me asking, what is the it factor that makes increasing diversity so good for organizations? And I want you to write these two words down. These two very separate words. One is perspective, and the other is consideration. So perspective and consideration. The lens through which I see the world creates my own perspective. It creates what I consider and what I do not consider. The way in which I identify, in all of the ways in which I identify, can influence these conditions that I'm born into. It can influence the conditions that I'm raised within and the access and the exposure that I do have or that I do not have. My identity has influenced many of my lived experiences. Now, my lived experiences shape the lens through which I view the world. It shapes my perspective. And all of the experiences that I've had over time have now equipped me with a unique level of intelligence. I call this intelligence lived experience intelligence. And when you bring me into a room where no one else looks like me, I can guarantee you that my perspective and the things that I consider will be unique. We need unique perspectives, and without them, everything that we generate in our products and services will continue to be more of the same. Now, the challenge with qualifications in job descriptions, as they're written today, is that it's just pushing for more of the sameness. Adding lived experience intelligence changes this. And the more that people begin to opt in using their lived experience intelligence, or LEI, and as more employers begin to tap in to LEI within their organizations, we will see greater returns in competitiveness and bottom line growth in organizations, period. When you opt in to using your LEI, the degree to which you use it is the quotient. So LEI is what you have, and LEQ is what you use. Because of my lived experiences, it is easier for me to notice when the problem is the environment and not the employee. It is easier for me to delineate the two. I've had so many experiences in my life where I've made decisions to go work in environments that may have been toxic environments. And I understand how remaining in environments that are toxic for too long can ultimately begin making you think that something is wrong with you. And so because of those lived experiences, now that I'm on the other end with evaluating environments, it's easier for me to uncouple the two. If there's lived experience intelligence and me as an employee leaning into this in the workplace, is it safe? And so one of the conversations that really emphasized in this report is around LEQ, which is the opting in of your lived experience intelligence. It won't work without an inclusive environment. It is impossible to tell an employee, bring your whole self to work, because that in and of itself is what we're saying with LEQ. But to tell somebody to bring their whole self to work and to know that there could be consequences of being your authentic self by way of maybe not getting new opportunities or maybe it shaping how people perceive you in the office, then who's going to opt into this? And so it's very easy for employers to say, oh yeah, I can tap into the LEQ here. I want everyone to lean in with their LEQ. And then you'll have a lot of employees saying, no, you're not going to get me that way. One of the things that we're talking about is bringing your authentic self into the workplace. But a part of that authentic self very well could mean that there's a lot of trauma. If there are things that have happened in the past, that just that intelligence around using that information to better serve the products and the services that we deliver in the workplace so that other people don't go through the same thing. I hope that makes sense. When I'm coaching job seekers, one of the first things that I always tell them is to make sure that you're adding value. Don't just talk about things and talk about your past and talk about your work experience for the sake of talking about it. It needs to add value. And I think that can be one delineation between what we need to bring into the workplace and what we need to keep at home. It is still also the responsibility of the workplace to create an inclusive work environment. If I bring some information about my past that is relevant, that does add value, yet I'm still penalized, then that becomes a problem. A lot of these things that we're talking about now, we also talk about in the actual report. So for anyone who wants to have a copy of this report for free, just go to livedexperienceintelligence.com and download your free copy. How do I bring up my lived experiences in a way that shows that I add value? Now, one of the best examples that I can use, and we give some examples inside of the report as well, is if I'm working within an organization and I really understand the clients that they either have or want to have in the future, right? And again, I'm gonna use my own lived experience. Let's say I'm working for an organization that right now they have their magazine and their audience is predominantly white women, but they're trying to increase the diversity among their audience and they're looking to attract more Black women. It is very important that as I'm sitting at the table and I'm interviewing, I'm talking about the fact that in my lived experiences, especially in context to what they're speaking about in the magazine, I have a different perspective due to my age, race, gender, the fact that I'm a mother and all of that. And so I can bring that perspective to better inform and influence the work that I deliver.